everyone, welcome to the RV Rental Secrets podcast. This week I'm here again with my co-host Garr Russell, and we're going to be talking about homeschooling. I've seen a lot of your posts recently, Garr, that you just started up your new school year, so I thought it would be a good topic.
Yeah, we just started yesterday. We've been homeschooling since the day we started schooling. Our oldest is 15. We got 15, 13, 9, and 7.
Wow, that's amazing. So I have a 6-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 13-year-old. We homeschooled during the pandemic for 2 years. And now this fall, actually next month, we're going to begin homeschooling again as we travel across the United States. So I'm really excited to dig into this topic.
I like it. So you're not really homeschooling then, you're road schooling, Stacy.
We're going to be visiting a lot of national parks, and incorporating museums into our homeschooling so that they're kind of learning more hands-on and really getting that view of the world that you can't see from just reading a book. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, there's something about seeing and touching and being right there that just brings the education experience alive. It makes me think of when we were traveling. We had a very important stop in our homeschooling journey. We stopped at the first Kentucky Fried Chicken that there ever was. I mean, that's something you don't forget. That's a memory.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what's more educational than that?
Yeah, I mean, we got to see where the colonel slept and right inside his little business and all the things. So anyway.
Now, I've seen like a lot of entrepreneurs post how they're homeschooling their kids, and I feel like by homeschooling, you're almost giving them like a leg up to become an entrepreneur. Like, how do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, you totally are. Yeah, because us being an entrepreneurial family with our homeschooling, we're always thinking from a entrepreneurial standpoint. Not just we're not like my kids. So our Emma, she went into a regular school system for about 6 weeks, and then we pulled her out, and she had to learn how to school. And so basically what she had to learn how to memorize something, to take a test, to check the box, to forget it, to memorize the new set of information, and as a homeschooler, it's just not like that. We're writing papers and doing presentations, and there's no check a box and this and that. And that's the entrepreneurial journey too, right? You're doing sales, so you're learning how to communicate, customer service, and overcome objections, and even like the math that our kids do. They're not learning algebra, calculus, whatever the other things are that they teach in public school that you never use as an adult. They're learning financial literacy, how to balance a bank account, how to figure out percentages and discounts and all those different kinds of things. So yeah, there's just so much. I'm trying to find this post on Facebook here about a homeschooling stat I just saw. Like the amount of people that are homeschooling, like now it's like in the millions per year. How amazing is it? And yeah, as an entrepreneurial family, homeschooling is just, it's where it's at. Oh, here's a stat. So in the 1980s, there was about 200,000 homeschoolers. In the 2000s, there was 1.5 million, 2010, 1.7 million. And so far in the 20s, there's over 5 million homeschool families. So I just love that, how homeschooling is just increasing by leaps and bounds. It's amazing.
I know, I'm excited for it. A couple months ago, I brought my oldest to a teen wealth workshop, which was put on by Bill Allen in Tennessee. And they did go through like all the financial literacy that you wouldn't normally get at that age. So they talked about investing and what are stocks and bonds, and talking about like compounding interest. And it was just so helpful for him to hear that and really start to think. At the end of it, they played a game where they were able to pick a job, and then they went to different stations and were able to invest in real estate or invest in stocks. And then at the end, they were able to see, I think it was 16 years that they went through, and see how much money they were able to earn from all of those investments after the 16 years. So I'm excited to continue that learning experience through homeschool, because especially with my oldest, I did see, like you said, they were just checking the boxes. And he is very smart and he learns like how to just get by. So like he wouldn't do his homework because like he had better things to do. And then he was like, oh, okay, well, I figured it out. And, I need to get a, 72 on this test and then I'll pass. So I'll be fine. So it was like he definitely knew how to work the system. So yeah, it wasn't the most educational experience because he wasn't using it the right way.
Yeah, that makes me think of my 9-year-old Noah. The math we have him doing this year, it's this DVD CD that he puts into a laptop. So he loves that because he's on a computer and that's the first time for him. But what he quickly learned is, okay, you have to do 5 lessons a week. So he's on there, like, I think he did 4 lessons yesterday in his first day. So he just went through and crushed it. But yeah, he crushed it as far as he knocked out a bunch of lessons. But did he actually retain the information? Did he actually learn a lot? Or no, is he just the way his brain works? Was he able to kind of figure out the system like your son was? Like, oh, here's how the system works, figure it out and just crush through it, Like you go to my older kids in their schooling, Garrison, my 13-year-old, part of his school is he has a business and he sells eggs. So he has 14 egg laying chickens. And so what we did for his business is we set up a subscription plan. So I taught Garrison about continuity, how to get people to subscribe to his membership where they get a dozen eggs per week. It's $20 per month. And man, that just opens this Pandora's box of learning because first he's got, these 7 slots he needs to fill. But what else does he have to do now? He has to reach out and he has to find people to subscribe, which was, I've got pictures of it. I was going to do a blog post on this. He had like 12 dozen of eggs, like just this huge surplus of inventory sitting on the counter. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing, man? We got to get going. And what we learned was like most people, when it comes to it's time to sell, and what happens when it's time to sell? Oh, there's a chance that I'm going to get rejected. Somebody's going to say no to my sales proposal. So him and I got to talk through that. So I have a picture of all these eggs sitting on a counter, and then I have a picture of him out on the swing, just swinging, because I'm like, dude, you need to go think about it and figure out what's going on. So I got a picture of him sitting out on the swing, searching his thoughts and emotions, and then he comes back and he's like, Dad, I'm scared that they'll say no. And so how cool is it that at 13 years old, he was able to learn that part of the sales process is rejection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's going to get them so much further in life, I feel like, than sitting in a classroom. Like we talked about, working the systems, and I almost feel like that's how it is in a corporate work environment. It's like you learn to what you need to do, like bare minimum, just to get by and get your paycheck. But you're just kind of dying inside, like you're not learning and growing and feeding that passion. So I love, that's where entrepreneurship comes in. And I feel like it's just help feeding our kids to learn that same lesson.
Yeah, Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins say that the highest form, let me see if I have this here, of the 6 human needs are growth and contribution. And when you're just set up in a regular school environment to memorize stuff to take a test where you're not being challenged and growing and stuff like that, like you're literally missing out on part of the God-given desire that's placed inside of you to grow and contribute. And when it's like you're set up to not even fail either. You're literally just set up to memorize something where one of my mentors, Josh Latimer, says, put your kids in situations where they experience failure because that's where real growth happens.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of setting them up to where everybody gets a trophy, everybody gets a star on their paper, everybody's got this or that. Like, no, it's okay to experience failure because failure is part of the process for growth.
Yeah. And I mean, I know everyone's not as lucky as us where they have the time to homeschool their kids. But I think even if, you're working a 9 to 5 and the kids are in traditional school, you can still take time after school especially if you're already in the RV rental business, which most likely you are if you're listening to this podcast, but take the time to teach them some of the skills about running a business. And I think that would be really beneficial to them. Learning accounting, you can take them, through your expenses and income that you're earning in your RV rental business and get them involved that way.
Yeah, and that really just takes, you just got to deliberately slow down a little bit. That's something that's been our prayer and what we've talked about with starting school this year is we do not need to be in a hurry. We do not need to feel rushed or anxious, because when we're slow and we're not having that anxiousness, then we're not missing those opportunities to teach. So that is definitely a very good point. There's so many things that our kids can learn from if they're still in school, but you still want to, teach them outside of school. That, yeah, there's some, I mean, even cooking and cleaning, like Noah, my 9-year-old, this kid can fry up bacon and eggs like it's nobody's business. Like it blows people's minds that I even let him near a stove. I'm like, let him near a stove. This kid can fry an egg better than you can. You want a good over easy egg? So like, hey, again, let your kids fail, let them try, let them experience life. We need to stop sheltering our kids so much.
Yeah, I think those life skills are definitely something that have kind of fallen behind in our society, probably the last decade or so, where, writing an address on an envelope or, even dialing a phone sometimes, they're so used to just pressing a button on a cell phone and getting on YouTube and have that instantaneous reaction to things where it's like they're missing out on all those little life lessons and life skills that they weren't taught.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that brings up a good side note, I'll say, about technology and homeschooling, because one of the things about homeschooling is you can get a lot done in a short amount of time with homeschooling. So you have a lot of downtime. Like our Mondays is our long day of homeschooling, but we're still done by around 2:00. And then Tuesday is a little shorter. We do 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then it's a little shorter. So one thing that we do to keep a balance with technology is we have some different apps on our kids' phones, Google Family Link, and then we have Bark, which monitors. And then that's another way to incentivize your kids to learn more or to add more to their workload is, hey, our kids all Emma gets a little bit more. Isabella, our 7-year-old, doesn't have a device. Noah and Garrison have one, and they each get an hour a day on their phone. And then after that, if they want to earn extra time, well, then they got to read or they got to do some chores or whatever, and part of that too really is let them get outside for a minute and get bored. I think we mess up on that. Right on the other side of boredom is creativity. So if you let your kids get outside where they're flopping and flailing, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. What do I do now? Blah, blah, blah. Like literally let that go for about another 5-10 minutes. Right on the other side of that, creativity kicks in. And then next thing you know, they're building a fairy garden around a tree, or they're making bow and arrows out of sticks, or they're playing tag, or they're on the trampoline. But we got to learn to press through that little bit of mini meltdown. I see it every time with my kids when their phones lock. Like I can literally hear their feet like walking at a different pace. I'm like, oh, they must have ran out of their hour because they're coming at me heavy and hot. So I know they're out of their time. And they literally walk over to me. What do I do now, Dad? I'm like, perfect. Now you've started the process. Give it 5, 10, 15 minutes. You're going to feel bored. You're going to feel frustrated with Dad. You're going to feel all these emotions. And then guess what's going to happen next? Creativity. And you're going to have fun and be a kid.
Yeah, that's so true. Like I just experienced that yesterday with my 2 youngest. And then, like you said, they got outside and after 10 minutes, they were building a whole roadway and playing with cars and trucks. Then they were inside playing pretend like doctor and hotel, and they had a whole office set up. Yeah, so just taking them away from the devices and letting their brains work and get creative is so important.
Yeah, it so is. What else do we want to talk about with homeschooling? I've got my 15-year-old's daily schedule up here. I could share a little bit of it if you want.
Yeah,
And then maybe you share a little bit of your routine.
yeah, definitely.
So Emma, this year now, we're making her, her first thing she has to do is exercise. She has to get on the treadmill and do 4 miles. And one of the main reasons that's her first thing is it wakes you up, right? It gets the chemicals flowing, gets the blood flowing, gets them up and awake, gets rid of that brain fog. So she does the treadmill. She does 4 miles on the treadmill, and she's a really smart girl. So I have parameters. She's got to do it in under 20 minutes, and she's got to have the resistance at 9 on the treadmill. And then while she's doing that, we have her listen to like a motivational, inspirational, spiritual podcast at the same time. So she's filling her mind with some good stuff. She's getting the body awake, moving, flowing, doing all the things. How's your morning typically start, Stacy?
I mean, I feel like we're kind of late starters with school. So I like to get up early and I get some work done in the morning. And then like the kids tend to sleep in a little bit. So we usually get started maybe around like 9 and get like the important subjects done first while they're like nice and wide and awake. And so we usually do like math or like writing in the beginning, and then usually take a break and then do some like play, and that's kind of when they get their exercise in. And then in the afternoon, like we'll come back and do the fun subjects like science or social studies.
Awesome. And isn't that the awesome thing about homeschooling? Yeah, because not everybody is a early bird and you can do things at different times. And yeah, if you like your quiet time during the morning to knock out your things so you feel productive and accomplished already,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can do stuff like that. So yeah, Emma does her exercise, then she's got a devotion that she reads, and then she has her mantra that she reads. And all of our kids have a mantra that we've written out for them based on the specific gifts that we know that they have and the callings that we believe that God has on their life. So they read that out. And then Emma does a lot of writing. So I have her either write out, like yesterday, I had her write out this letter. I read this book called Giant Killers by Bill Johnson, Raising Giant Killers. And at the end of it was a letter that he wrote to his children, 10 things I want you to know. So I have Emma writing that letter out, or I'll have her write out like a psalm or a book from the Bible, or just something, that I feel is good and important for her.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like the principal, so I check the schoolwork at the end. They check in with dad, and I check the math and this and that with them. And mom does the more of the reading and phonics and stuff like that. Sorry, let me back up. We all do a devotion time together in the morning, and we do some reading as a group, and then we break off.
Yeah, I think with us being on the road more, like I'm going to try to do more podcasts, maybe so when we're driving, we can get, some of that time in so it's not wasted. And then when I was previously homeschooling, we used a curriculum called Bookshark, but I felt like it was a little overwhelming because it kind of was more like traditional school where it was like, again, you had to check this box and do this. So we're going to kind of take more of like an unschooling approach this coming year, like where I mentioned, visiting museums and national parks and learning by doing rather than doing worksheets and things like that. So I'm really excited to experience that and see how it goes.
Yeah, I love that about homeschooling is following the kids' passions and their bents and their gifts. Two of our kids have dyslexia, and we're just so thankful that we're able to school them and learn that, because if they were, I'm not saying that it's 100% the case, but most likely if they were in a public school system, they probably would have been labeled something else. But we just thank God that we're homeschool them so we can see their strengths, see their weaknesses, and find all the different reasons, because there's just so many resources out there. We did the classical conversation for several years and got a lot of good stuff out of that, and a lot of different good curriculums for reading. And there's just so much hodgepodge, and my wife is like the homeschool guru. She has women like all around reaching out to her because she's just very good at encouraging moms with their homeschooling journey and letting them know, like, hey, you don't have to just pick one curriculum and run with it. Like, that's okay. Go with where your child is learning and where you're seeing progress, because that's so countercultural to public school and okay, now you take this test so we can rank you to see where you're at, this and that. It's just, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to move forward. Hopefully this episode like gave encouragement to people to start thinking about homeschooling if they aren't. I know it can be a big change, but I definitely think it's worth it. And I know it's not our typical episode, but I hope it'll inspire you.
Yeah, same here. Rock out, all you homeschool parents. So proud of you. You're doing the hard things. You're investing in your kids. And, for those of you out there that you want to homeschool, but for whatever reason it doesn't work, start to explore that. Get a little curious and see what could potentially change to make it work. Like in one of this groups that I'm in, they say you only have 18 summers with your kids. So instead of looking back with a bunch of regrets, the number one need that a child has is love and connection. And what do we do as parents? We're spending a bunch of our time trying to make money to buy them all the things and all the toys and all the experiences. They just want us. They just want to be with us. I saw this video on Facebook a while ago and it interviewed all these parents. If you could meet anybody or spend time with anybody in the world, who would it be? And the parents are like, oh, it would be Justin Bieber. It would be the Monkees. It would be Jesus. It would be, all these famous people. And then they flipped the camera around and interviewed the kids. And oh man, I'm a crier for those of y'all that don't. It just brought me to tears. Like, I don't know, like have a nice dinner with my mom and dad. Like, I don't know, maybe just go on a bike ride with my dad. Like, that's what our kids want. They want us. They want quality time with their parents. So maybe you guys need to make a hard choice and say, you know what? If we actually make these couple tweaks on our budget, maybe if we actually downsize our house, maybe if we actually, whatever, we could actually make this work. I want to encourage you, don't feel like you're stuck and hopeless and there's no possible way for you to do it. As Myron Golden says, if the desire is strong enough, we'll make that choice. We'll make it. Same reason as the desire was strong enough for you to have the 4,000 square foot house, you make the mortgage payment happen. If the desire is strong enough for you to invest more in your children before they're adults, well, then you get rid of the 4,000 square foot house and you go to 2,000 square foot and you do the thing that's purpose in your heart to do. So do hard things, parents.
Well, I love that. Just your little speech there inspired me. Like, I want to go out and take a walk or a bike ride with the kids and just spend that quality time with them.
It's so precious, those memories. So precious.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode and we'll see you again next week.